Today on Listen Up, the baby business and where the options science creates are taking us. That story next. Welcome to Listen Up. I'm Lorna Duick. The natural work of having babies is becoming a complex journey of ethical choices. Today we look at reproductive technologies, screening for genetic diagnosis, and sex selection that's creating a market for families that's moving forward fast ahead of our ability to discuss what might be right and what should be wrong. Today, a University of the Heart says we're on a slippery slope to wiping out a very valuable part of our intelligence when we select for perfect babies, and one woman's intimate road to motherhood. First, Canada's Society of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, who say it's time to give mothers of Canada more options about knowing just what kind of baby may be growing in their womb. Dr. Don Davis is the president of the Society of Obstetricians and Gynecologists of Canada. He joins us from Medicine Hat, Alberta. And Dr. Davis, the Society's recommendation is that all expectant moms undergo screening for fetal abnormalities. What's the reason for doing this?
Well, the SOGC has recommended that this be offered to all expectant mothers now. We know that the screening has been available in many provinces throughout Canada, and now that the tests are a little bit more reliable, there's fewer false positives and false negatives, we feel that this should be available to all women in Canada now.
So you're lowering the age to all women. But is there something happening about understanding what's inside that is making this necessary for both mother and fetus?
Well, we previously thought that this should be offered to women in a certain age group, and arbitrarily the number, the age rather, of the mother was set at 35, and this was because it was thought that after 35 there was a dramatic increase in the incidence of chromosomal abnormalities. Clearly, though, it became obvious after this policy was instituted that most of the chromosomal abnormality affected babies were born to women under the age of 35, so we're missing a large group of patients. So that now that the test is available in more provincial jurisdictions, we feel that everyone should be able to take advantage of this if they want.
And the argument is because of this focus on chromosomal abnormalities that you are saying as a society of obstetricians and gynecologists, some lives are simply not worth bringing into the world. What do you say to that critique?
Well, no, I think that's misdirected. What we want to do is we want to provide patients with all the information and knowledge that they need to make informed decisions, so that if we can provide information to parents to as one of my mentors used to say, being forewarned is forearmed. If they can be forewarned of potential problems or difficulties, then arrangements can be made to manage these, to handle these, to remedy them in many cases, so that we can prepare for where these babies should be delivered and what kind of care might be necessary.
There is a fear that this will lead to more abortions. We don't have an abortion law in Canada. What do you say to that concern?
Well, I think we have to give the women of Canada as much information as possible and as reasonable for them to make knowledgeable decisions. And we have to have faith in them to make the decisions that are right for them. There are no wrong answers under these circumstances. The decision that they make is going to be right for them as a couple and for their family. So that if we can provide them with that information, that knowledge, then they're going to be able to make more informed decisions and be more comfortable and confident when they go forward with those decisions.
You really feel this is about being forewarned, forearmed. This is really the option that you're hoping for parents as a society, is better care for these babies that could be at risk?
Most definitely. If we find a baby with perhaps a chromosomal abnormality, then we can look for other potential problems such as cardiovascular disease, gastrointestinal disorders that are associated with chromosomal abnormalities. We can be prepared for them so that when the babies are delivered, we can anticipate problems before they actually arise and be better prepared to handle these.
So the worry about genetic selection, this is not valid. This is not another option of increasing selective parenting in our country.
I think we need to provide patients with the opportunity and choice, and we can offer these tests to them, and then they can make the decisions that are appropriate for them and their families.
All right, Dr. Davis from Medicine Hat, thank you very much.
My pleasure, and thank you.
When the news first broke that the Society of Obstetricians and Gynecologists of Canada was about to recommend all pregnant women undergo screening for fetal abnormalities such as Down syndrome, families of Canadians with Down syndrome were quick to point out that kind of screening could one day lead to an entire population being eliminated. Here to comment from Calgary, Alberta is Krista Flint, President of the Canadian Down Syndrome Society. Krista, what was your reaction at the Society?
Well, certainly Canadians with Down syndrome, of which there are about 30,000, certainly contacted us, great numbers of them, and their families, of course, because it's an issue of concern for them.
Krista, tell us about the parents who have spoken out in the press that they worry their Down's children will become an endangered species. What's this fear based on?
Well, I think that certainly the Canadian Down Syndrome Society supports a woman's right to either choose to terminate or continue her pregnancy. Our concern, and the concern of families who make up our constituency, is that fair, balanced, and accurate information be given to potential parents and women that talks about not just the challenges of a life with Down syndrome, but some of the real benefits of that life.
So what you are worrying about is really societal prejudice coming from a medical pressure.
Certainly, we're worried that even the language used to describe Down syndrome in a medical context is really value-laden and has a bias against the existence of a life with Down syndrome or any other developmental disability as well. We hope that medical practitioners will reconsider the use of the language in a prenatal or postnatal determination of Down syndrome.
I think a lot of people observe Down syndrome families from a distance, and they wouldn't understand why we would not want to abort that kind of pregnancy or any deformed pregnancy. What would you say to that? Why not?
Well, I think families would tell you that, and we've heard with astonishing regularity, the ways in which having a child with Down syndrome has brought tremendous joy to the life of a family. We've heard from employers who recount the numerous ways that the inclusion of an employee with Down syndrome has made their workplaces better and more effective. And we've also heard from neighbors who count citizens with Down syndrome as friends and important parts of their communities.
Now, your group is partnering with the Association of Genetic Counselors. You want to create a value-neutral language bank to talk with families about their options around this increase in screenings. What does that mean? Well,
really, we're hoping to, and we are working at the beginning stages of working with the Canadian Association of Genetics Counselors to talk about this value-neutral language bank, both prenatally and postnatally. And it really doesn't talk about options so much as it talks about the ways in which we give families information. The Canadian Down Syndrome Society doesn't consider Down syndrome to be a birth defect, nor a medical condition. While there are medical conditions associated with Down syndrome, the existence of the extra genetic material doesn't signify any kind of brokenness in that individual. There's information that we hope to get into the hands of medical practitioners through this partnership about even very simple things like saying congratulations when a baby's born that happens to have Down syndrome, to ensure that you use the child's name regularly in the determination postnatally of Down syndrome, that someone's holding the baby when the news is first given to families who may have not known before the baby was born that their child would have Down syndrome.
Krista Flint with the Down Syndrome Society from Calgary, thank you very much.
Thank you.
When Listen Up returns, the work of a Harvard professor who created a University of the Heart. It's called L'Arche, a community of disabled citizens who live out a mission to teach love.
The first instinct of L'Arche is to build places of belonging, places of community.
Our question at Listen Up this week: what sources would you draw from as a moral compass on issues of reproductive technology? Write to us at listenuptv.com. And Listen Up is back looking at the issues of selective parenting, and we're going now to Melinda Esterbrooks at a Special Olympics practice in Ontario.
Thank you, Lorna. Well, I'm here tonight at the Ontario Special Olympics rhythmic gymnastics practice, where over half of the athletes here have Down syndrome.
This club has been going about 6 years, and it started off with just the rhythmic gymnastics, and we've had the martial gym, which is the boys' part of the program, for just 2 years now. We have 26 athletes, 5 of whom are boys, and we come once a week to practice here in the gym, and we run through routines getting ready for competitions.
But this is not just a club for achieving Special Olympic gold, but a community of coaches, volunteers, and parents who cheer on these athletes from the sidelines with their whole hearts. One such parent is Ruth Ann McCauley, who found out 15 minutes after her son Matt was born that he had Down syndrome.
I think that new parents have a tendency to try and imagine the whole life of their children in those first minutes. You immediately wonder where he's going to go to school, where he'll live. You try to live your child's whole life in that first day, and that's not a healthy thing to do.
What would you say that Matt contributes to your family and to you personally?
Well, he has certainly enriched our lives. He has made us more patient parents. He has certainly taught our subsequent children. We have 2 daughters younger than Matt, and he's taught them to be more compassionate, more patient. We've learned so many things from Matt. He's really been a wonderful addition to our family. We wouldn't have missed the adventure.
Mike Ross is the men's coach for the Special Olympics Martial Arts Club and is the father of Shannon, who is an athlete here. Shannon also has Down syndrome. Is it hard work? Is it hard?
Having kids, yeah. Any kids, all kids, yeah. And you always have to be an advocate for your kid. It doesn't matter if it's someone with Down syndrome or just a regular quote-unquote kid. You have to be an advocate these days.
What have been the greatest challenges in having a Down syndrome child?
Just trying to reset expectations sometimes. I have the same expectations for her that I do for my other daughter, which is to grow up and be a contributing member of society, but sometimes on a different level, to achieve different goals. So you set goals, but sometimes they're just a little different. Right now she's in high school, and she's working on she's up to 5 credits now in grade 10, so I don't expect she'll go to university. Again, different expectations, but the same.
Debbie Boycott is also a coach for the Oakville Butterflies. Her daughter Emily is at the top level for rhythmic gymnastics. Debbie found out Emily had Down syndrome when her daughter was only 3 days old. Her greatest fears involved thoughts of her daughter's future. What would become of Emily? What would her quality of life be like? How has Emily contributed to your family and to you personally, and how has she enriched your lives?
Emily has a wonderful sense of humor. She makes us laugh. She's delightful. She's an excellent athlete, as all of our children are, but she's sort of been the one who has surpassed our expectations, and some of the travel opportunities she's had with Special Olympics have been amazing. She says what she thinks. She gives us a different perspective on things. I think sometimes we think too intellectually about things, and she just says it like it is, and really it makes so much sense when you hear her. She has a wonderful faith, and that just glows from her and just comes very natural. It just makes perfect sense to her. And issues like that we tend to think about and too much sometimes, I think. So she's like a breath of fresh air in a lot of ways.
Emily has a lot to say about her plans for this year. I learned a lot from her. So Emily, we just talked to your mom, and she is so proud of you. Why don't you tell me what you're going to be doing in the next little while?
I'm going to China, Shanghai, in October 2007, and it's going to be really fun, amazing, lots to do.
Okay. And what are you going to be doing in China? What's your specialty?
My hoop. I really like my hoop. It's
Do you have your hoop here?
Yeah.
Okay, can I see it? Oh. Yeah. And so you jump through the hoops, or what do you do with the hoop?
I do a lot with the hoop. I jump, I throw it, I catch it, and I do neat things with it.
That's great. So Emily, tell me, do you enjoy the club here? It's the Oakville Butterflies, right?
Yes.
You enjoy it?
Yeah, I do. It's fun.
What's your favorite part?
Seeing my friends, having fun. You jump around and face this way.
I jump?
Yeah.
Like straight up?
Yeah.
From Oakville, Ontario, I'm Melinda Estabrooks for Listen Up TV.
Well, in hundreds of small homes and day settings around the world, caregivers and volunteers from diverse cultures and backgrounds share deeply committed relationships with people with developmental disabilities. These communities are called L'Arche, and Listen Up traveled to one to learn what's to lose when science allows us to eliminate abnormal births.
Wittery is a sheltered workshop within Daybreak, and it provides employment for about 12 or 13 core members and 3 assistants. And we do make wooden products that we sell to industry. It's a real sense of fulfillment, and I think they're celebrating their own work, and they're celebrating their friendship, and that we're all together, here together, all working together. I think it's more relationship than just a sense of producing a product.
The story of how L'Arche began is really quite amazing. The now well-known Canadian Jean Vanier made a decision, an irrevocable choice, a decision to live with 2 men who had developmental disabilities. So he purchased a home in the north part of France and began to live with Raphael and Philippe. And that's how L'Arche began in the early 60s.
Joe tells me what your father to me. He really teach me what the work is most important. You're supposed to be on time and get paid. And Joe tells, it's so lucky, you know, how you're a good boss.
Joe told me that all of his friends here make him feel very loved.
I feel the same way too.
How do you show Joe that you love him?
I go up and ask Joe what I'm going to offer breakfast, lunch. Just to me and nobody else. Just him and me.
Sometimes.
That's how I take care of Joe.
Oh. Sometimes you and Joe, just the 2 of you, go out for lunch.
Yeah. When Dave wants to go out with us, we take 2, but they didn't want to go with us.
It sounds like a very special time.
Yeah. We talk a lot.
What we know today is that 75, 80, up to 90% of fetuses that are diagnosed as having Down syndrome are eliminated. And of course, with the recent recommendation that maternal blood screening be made more available, I know that this number is only going to rise.
No core member has ever said, you've built a nice Eucharist table, or you've built a nice set of cabinets for our house, or this or that. It will never happen. They say, I like being here with you. And that's all it is. And that's an incredible message for our world, because we're built on material gain, and that almost means nothing to core members. It just doesn't resonate with them. And I like hearing that.
Those are voices from the community of L'Arche, a place known as a University of the Heart. Next, a personal look into the $3 billion industry of reproductive technology. One woman's efforts to become a mother after this.
Closed captioning provided by Duca Financial Services Credit Union. Discover more affordable banking at duca.com.
Listen Up is back looking at the ethical challenges of how to decide the deeply personal issues around reproductive technologies. At least 15% of couples have some sort of fertility problem, and the infertility industry is a $3 billion, largely unregulated marketplace. It offers many services, from helping women produce more eggs or harvesting fertile wombs who offer eggs for sale. The baby business can fertilize eggs with purchased sperm and sell hormone treatments to prepare wombs to receive fertilized eggs. In the U.S., a 9-month rent of a womb can cost $20,000. The industry raises a storm of controversy. Our next guest, marketing specialist Stephanie Coburn, decided God was also part of the questions when she began her journey to solve her infertility. Tell me what it's like to be a woman who starts to explore options on how you can get pregnant.
It's really scary, actually. It's really scary. It's terrifying. But we were confident with all the means that we had at our disposal and all of the options, like you said, that, you know, we would be able to get pregnant at some point, or we would be able to research other options. And we were just confident that there would be a family in our future.
You tried 9 times.
It was 9 times, yes, before we were successful.
Tell me about the wonder of discovering finally you are pregnant.
We got the news. I remember I was at my office at the time, and we certainly were praying the whole time that God would bless our efforts. I mean, so much of it, you know, God was just a daily part of it for us as well, and we just praised God.
You soon discover that you are going to have twins, but by 21 weeks, this is a very high-risk pregnancy. Tell us about this.
Well, I was really a high risk from the very beginning, actually. It was a pregnancy that was riddled with complication. Just being involved with a fertility clinic and being considered infertile, which is what directs you to the fertility clinic, indicates that you are at higher risk because you're involved with a fertility clinic. So I was really high risk from the very beginning, and it was just riddled with complication, and it was, I think it was actually 19 weeks that my cervix started to open, and they rushed me over to the hospital to have a stitch, to stitch my cervix together. So it really was that stitch and the will of God that was keeping those babies in my womb.
Your water breaks at 23 weeks. What does this mean?
I was in the hospital at the time. My bed rest had elevated to the point of hospital-restricted bed rest. And my water broke. The one sac broke. And we were terrified.
You gave birth to a little girl that you named Hope. Tell us what that was like.
She was beautiful. She was beautiful in our eyes. She was alive, and we knew, and we had been told on a daily basis that until 24 weeks they were not viable. So we knew that her lungs had not developed to a point that she would have a chance at life born before 24 weeks. So we knew that when I went into active labor that we were going to lose at least one of the babies. But when we saw her, I mean, it was just a miracle. I mean, we were praising God and grieving, and it just was a roller coaster of emotions for my husband and me and my family.
And the second baby comes. Hope is alive. You pass her to your family. What happens?
Yes, Hope was alive, and I really wasn't prepared to give birth to the second one. I was feeling that the tragedy of the first was all that God was going to ask of us that day. But you know, Hope is alive and in my arms, and they began to prepare me for childbirth again with the second baby, and she too was born alive, and we had an opportunity to hold them both, you know, together before they passed. So
it's been almost 2 years since you lost your twins, And yet you tell us that you've gotten to know God better through all of this loss and frustration and grief. Tell us about that.
I've been a Christian all my life, you know, and I grew up in a Christian home, and I've had, you know, a Christian foundation, and it wasn't until we lost the girls that I realized that my journey with God was really just beginning, that He was more real to me, you know, that day in that delivery room when we lost the girls than He has ever been to me, and He's continued to hold me close and just remind me of how capable He is, and just the abundance of His grace and mercy.
What would you advise someone who is experiencing infertility and the longing for a child? What would you advise them to do?
Seek God first. You know, that's where we should have started. God, you know, God was with us every step of the way, but I think we missed the very important point that we should have sought God's guidance first. And, you know, God, if you're listening, God will find opportunities to speak to you and to guide you. And, you know, it could be something different for everyone, but allow God to just orchestrate the events of your life, and just listen. Sometimes wait.
Our question at Listen Up this week: what sources would you draw from as a moral compass on issues of reproductive technology? Write to us at listenup@listenuptv.com. Today we discovered the heartbreaking realities around new sciences making parenting possible. The Catholic view is that children are given, not made. We procreate together with God. And that may be too restrictive for some, but church teachings are helpful because, as you've seen in today's program, science doesn't have answers for all the questions it raises. And the Christian view is helpful in that it bears human beings are made in the image and likeness of God, and they're to be reverenced as sacred no matter what capabilities they are born with or without. Respect for the dignity of human life from conception, and not destroying life even in its earliest stages. We've posted some of that theology to help navigate the new science at listenuptv.com, and some helpful resources there for the pain of infertility. That's this week's spiritual look behind the headlines affecting our lives. I'm Lorna Dueck. Thanks for joining us.